Hey guys, I'm back. I'm back from the Dragon. And while I was down there, well, I learned a few things. Learned some things about my car, learned some things about a fairly spectacular piece of road, so stay tuned. Hey guys, what's going on? And welcome back to Shifting Lanes. My name's Chad. This is my 2008 Volvo C30, freshly back from conquering the Dragon. Now, you've already seen a lot of stuff from Greg. You've seen him kind of give you a tour of the road from his driving perspective. Then you saw an expert scare the absolute bejesus out of him in his very own car on the road and see just what it's all about. Big shout out to Rich Forsyth. If you haven't already, head on over to his channel. It's Moose Tech Garage. He does a lot of really cool stuff with Volvos and goes really in depth to help you do the project to your car. Today, we're not here to talk about the V70R because frankly, it's spent a lot of time in my rearview mirror. Today, we're talking about the 6 things I learned while driving this car on Tail of the Dragon. Yes, I am kicking off my Dragon coverage. Stay tuned. I'm going to have some really awesome C30 builds in the coming weeks. But this is all about the Dragon and how my little C30 fared. And we start off with the Tail of the Dragon. Yeah, it's worth the hype. It's just over 300 corners squeezed into 11 miles. There's hairpins, there's flowing corners, there's switchbacks. There's so much you can do on that road without really going crazy fast. And the best part is you don't need a mega horsepower car to really get the most out of those roads. Most of the times you're going 20, maybe 30 miles an hour through some of the tighter corners, and it's just as fun. It is an amazing piece. If you have the opportunity, definitely head down, check it out. You will not be disappointed. One tiny little caveat to that though, it's in the middle of God's country. It's in the middle of absolute nowhere. Our hotel didn't get cell service. I had to travel what felt like miles to the nearest point to get cell service. They did have Wi-Fi, but it wasn't ideal. But if you can live like it was, say, 15, 20 years ago without your cellular device, and you're a big fan of driving on some awesome roads, definitely check it out. It is well worth your time and your energy, and well worth my 12 and a half hours just to get down there. The second thing I learned, well, before I left for the trip, one of the big things on the top of my to-do list was getting rid of the open differential and putting a proper limited slip differential in this car. Just puttering around town, she suffers with the power she's making a little bit of torque steer. However, when I was down on the Dragon, I didn't really notice it too much because I think I was so focused on hitting the apexes, driving the car hard, that I was constantly wrestling control. Well, I shouldn't even say wrestling. This thing is, I'll get to that in a second. This is a really fun little car. But I didn't really notice too much in the way of torque steer. Now, I understand an open diff is going to send power to the least loaded wheel, and to be 100% honest, I didn't really have that one tire fire a lot coming out of corners. And say what you will, I was a noob driving the road, but I was pretty hard on the throttle coming out of these corners, and at no point was I really just lighting it up as I got to the next corner. And LSD has kind of been put on the back burner because I did find some other things that kind of need addressing first before I even get to that point. And that brings me to number 3. This car is in, I don't want to say desperate need, but it is in need of bigger, better brakes. Now, the stock brakes do a fine job of slowing you down when you're driving around normally or even in an emergency stopping situation. However, over 300 corners, most of which are hairpins, you're braking really hard, really often from pretty decent speeds. Unfortunately, the C30, well, about halfway or 2/3 up the run, she would cook her brakes. I'd get fade, I'd have to pull off, let the brakes cool down before I could continue enjoying the road. Now, having to stop midway, or the alternative, which is braking earlier, braking softer, not braking as hard, did mean I could kind of get up through the entirety of the run, but it kind of robbed some of the fun from the experience. Now, it is still hella fun, but not as fun as it could be. And speaking of fun, that's number 4, and that is our fat 245/40 tires on this beast. Now, it looks a little goofy, and I do have some rub, even with the suspension, even with that much gap between tire and wheel well. I loved the fatter rubber, and I would absolutely love to keep it on this car. However, I don't really know if that's something my budget can absorb. Let me explain. Now, the fatter rubber meant I could carry really good corner speed through most of these corners. Now, while some of the all-wheel drive guys, or guys who just flat out out-horsepowered me, even guys like Greg, could kind of pull away from me a little bit in the corners, I would more than make it up for it just through sheer corner speed. I was absolutely astonished at just how much corner speed I could carry, and a lot of it's down to these tires, because basically the car's on stock suspension. Again, that's something I'll touch on in a little bit, but so I would absolutely love to keep this fatter rubber. The problem is I already have a rub, and once I get coilovers on her and I drop her down to a proper ride height, that rubbing is only going to get worse. Now, there are some ways to lower this car and keep the fatter rubber. The first option would be to go classic wide body. As they don't make a wide body kit for this car, I'd have to do something kind of custom. And thanks to these, I'm sure these only complicate the wide body process even further. Not to mention paint, not to mention all that other stuff, spacers, maybe longer studs. You could see this kind of spirals to a point where that's kind of out of my budget. Now, there are some modifications you can do to the inner wheel well, which will allow for more clearance, add for fatter rubber, and so on. But that stuff's a little outside of my level of expertise. It requires cutting, welding, both of which I'm not too keen to try out on my daily driver. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is go to a slightly smaller tire, which I don't really wanna do, but such is the situation I find myself in. Number 5, and that is driving the C30 hard not only cooked the brakes, like I talked about earlier, but it also cooked my AC unit. And come to find out, this is something that the C30, the P1 platform in general, and some other Volvos of this era, it's a problem they all kind of suffer from. When things get hot, which I know is kind of counterintuitive, but when things get hot, when you're driving the car really, really hard, there's a clutch pack in the AC compressor, and it doesn't like the heat, much like the driver or passengers and so on, but it doesn't like the added heat of driving the car hard, which means it just kind of gives up. Now, there is a shim trick you can do to kind of prevent that from happening, to kind of keep your AC kind of working as it should. Might be something worth investigating, or I found rolling the windows down worked as well. Plus you hear more turbo noises, more good stuff, more of the exhaust, all that other fun stuff, which makes the experience even that more visceral, more enjoyable. And it's not just the problem suffered by this car. Greg had the exact same issue when we were down there. So if you own a Volvo, look into, I think it's a shim removal, or you add a shim. I don't remember off the top of my head. There's people who've done it. Definitely check it out. That'll make your AC work regardless of how much of a lunatic you happen to be driving like. And lastly, number 6. And that is, this little car surprised the ever-living hell out of me on those corners. And I mean that in the best way possible. I've known for years now that the C30 is a fairly good platform, a fairly fun platform, a fairly decent handling hot hatch platform. What I wasn't expecting was for it to handle corners the way it did when it was down there. Now, part of that's down to the really fat rubber, but part of it, most of it's down to just how intelligently this car was designed from factory. Now, I have pretty much a bone stock suspension in this car, save for a chassis brace in the back, and she was phenomenal. I was really surprised at how quick turn-in was, how linear the steering felt, how communicative steering was through various inputs, various loads, various corner speed, etc. The back end, I was expecting to have maybe a little bit of lift-off oversteer. None of it. She handled corners like a champ. I was expecting a ton of oversteer, especially given how much of the weight is forward, how much power Did I say oversteer? I was expecting a ton of understeer, especially getting into corners and so on and so forth. I think I understeered twice, and once was in a, well, let's just say I was trying to avoid a motorcycle incident that had kind of wandered into my lane. As far this, I was blown away at how good this car handled. She has a comfortable ride, yet she handles corners. She had some body roll, which I plan to rectify with coilovers, rear sway bar, and maybe a front chassis brace. But as a stock package, this car was really, really good. I was blown away by it. It far exceeded my expectations as far as an overall handling machine. Overall, the trip was, I was blown away by the trip. The location was beautiful. It may have had absolutely nothing in the way of cell service, save for some Wi-Fi here and there, but that just didn't matter. It was an absolutely gorgeous area of the country. The road was exactly as advertised. It was so much fun. If you have just about any car, you can go down there and have an absolute blast driving down these roads. The people, I mean, the Volvo community, I've said this once, I've said it probably a million times. The Volvo community is absolutely awesome. We met a ton of really cool people, really nice people who just were there to help you out if you needed it, there to talk cars if you wanted, or there to talk just about anything. I had an absolute blast, both on the Dragon and at the fire pit, having maybe a few adult beverages after the fact, or just hanging out in general. And that's the best part about owning a Volvo. Now, I know a ton of you guys love Volvos for the cars themselves. Me personally, I love my Volvo because of the people it has given me the chance to get to know. People like Rich Forsyth, Imran, a bunch of other people who I wouldn't know if it wasn't for this car, and I'm all the better for it. So, look, if you're looking for a car or just a car community, get yourself a Volvo, because I doubt you're going to find anything better. This is just the start, guys. I have 3, maybe 4 more videos coming up. I have some 3 really awesome C30's in various stage of build that I'm going to be bringing to you starting this Friday. All these cars and their owners are just awesome people, and their stories are even better, so definitely stay tuned for that. I'm stoked to bring that to you. But as for this one, guys, I learned a lot. I had a lot of fun, met some awesome people, but that's a wrap for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to find Shifting Lanes out on social media, it's at Shifting Lanes. If for whatever reason you want to talk to me, find me on social media at Chennedy83. I'm more than happy to try to talk to everyone, so just DM me there or just hit me up however you see fit. If you want to help support the channel, there's a few ways you can do that, chief among which is head on down to our Teespring account. We have a ton of really awesome Volvo themed swag there, and just great Shifting Lane swag there, including the brand new Hellwinkle t-shirts, hoodies, and so on. Those are really, really awesome, guys. Definitely go check those out. And every dollar we make from t-shirt sales, Patreon, the lot, we put directly back into the channel to making more content that hopefully you guys enjoy. That's it, guys. I had fun. Hope you did too, and I'll catch you next time.